I'm tired. I'm just so tired. Hey, it's Patsy. Welcome back to my channel. Bessie, did you hear? 2 new episodes of Love is Blind just dropped. And yes, I'm here to recap episodes 8 and 9 for you all. First off, I want to say apologies if I am a little bit lower energy in this video. The panic attacks were hitting today, so I had to pop some hydroxyzine, and now homie is tired. I also want to say thank you to everyone that's been subscribing and liking the videos and commenting. I really appreciate the engagement and the support. I am so close to hitting my goal of 1,000 subscribers, so if you're new here and you aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And also, if you're here and I already hit 1,000 subscribers, then help me reach my next goal of 5,000 subscribers. I can't believe that these past 3 videos have helped my channel grow so much, so thank you guys so much for the support. But anyways, enough of the rambling. Let's get right into episode 8. Where we left off at episode 8 was the pod members coming back and they had a little get together, and Uche asked to speak to Lydia. It was a little tense. He brings up how Lydia was like a stalker when they were dating, and Lydia's like, I'm not having this bullshit. She's yelling at him, walks away, and then Uche asks to talk to Milton. So we start off with that. Uche is just like, look, I just want to be honest, because when I came in, I wasn't honest about like how I knew Lydia, and I felt like it was different on the other sides for her because she was telling Aaliyah like things about Uche. And so for Uche, that made him feel like Lydia was still upset about their breakup. So he wanted to tell Milton about it. He says that after they went their separate ways, he was like trying to be the bigger person and still trying to be supportive and like be there for her. He says the more that he thought about it, he was like, no, there's these like bigger issues that I felt like I never got to address. So that's pretty much why he wanted to talk to her this night. And I totally understand if like Uche felt hurt because of the things that Lydia did like earlier in their relationship, but I just think it was like handled very poorly. Like the way he was going about it was just like very egotistical, very narcissistic in my opinion. Like I'm not saying that Lydia is like totally innocent and that she didn't do those things. Like honestly, we didn't really hear her side of the story. She said a little bit about like the driveway thing, about how they were talking beforehand, but it's kind of hard because we only heard one side of the story. But pretty much he was just focusing on what she did wrong, and he's making her seem like she's the whole reason why like he didn't get married to Aaliyah, which is totally not true. So I don't like how he's painting that narrative about her. But anyway, in the middle of their conversation, Lydia storms in and she's just yelling for Milton, telling him to walk away. And Uche's just like, no, like let the man talk. Milton's trying to talk to her. He's like, don't let her control you. It's like, ugh, super messy. The first half of this episode is just like so messy for no reason. Like coming back after a week off, you're like, whoa. Like every 2 minutes, it's just like, why is there just so much drama popping off right now? I don't like it. I really don't. But Milton tells Uche that he'll be right back, and we see him walking off with Lydia, and then the title screen plays. All of that was just like the first 2 minutes of the episode. Oh my God. Uche comes back with the rest of the cast and they're just like, what happened? And he pretty much tells them how he knew Lydia before coming to the pods. And of course, this is a shock to everyone. We see Johnny and she like makes a face and she's looking around at everybody. And for some reason, Stacy feels, I don't know, attacked, called out. And she asks Stacy like, is your face okay? And Stacy's like, Johnny, she's just like, I'm surprised. Like, what do you mean? And Stacy's like, oh, I feel like you were looking at me. Like, why are you looking at me? So dumb. Uche is just sitting there like, can I finish my story? Like, honestly, Uche, like, no, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear you talk. But this is just so funny how that interaction happened in the middle of that. This is what I'm just saying, like, just so much drama. This is like the first 4 minutes. Anyway, long story short, Uche is just saying how he feels like Lydia sabotaged his and Aaliyah's relationship, and she's the sole reason why they're not together. Again, there's those egotistical vibes, narcissistical vibes, because he's taking no accountability for what he did in the situation. Like, if he was just honest about Aaliyah in the first place, like about him being with Lydia, about them hooking up earlier in their year, I don't think she would have took it as hard. Like, yeah, Lydia crossed the boundary. It made that even harder. But I don't know, man. He's not in the clear either here, you know? Like, they both suck for real. Stacey brings up how she feels like Uche is just, like, making it seem like more than what it is. And she says how on the girl's side, you know, she felt like Lydia was really being there for her friend. And he's like, but this is before everyone found out about us, right? And then the other girls start chiming in, and for some reason he starts dismissing Miriam, which is a girl that he had a date with. I think we saw on like day one. And from what I remember, I think their date was like a little bit awkward. She was talking about work and how she worked in Saudi Arabia, but she was moving back to Houston. And yeah, like clearly they didn't go anywhere, but I think because they had a past, he was just dismissing her. She started to feel some type of way, obviously. So this just ended up in like, another screaming match, because he dismisses her. He says she's being bitter. He says, you know, Stacey, I just want to hear your opinion. I don't care about what they have to think. It just turns into this whole big thing where Uche is just calling her out. He's like, I don't know. Do you live in Saudi Arabia? Do you live in Texas? I don't know. Do you have a job? Do you not have a job? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you not have a boyfriend? Like, just so petty. He walks away. As he's walking away, Miriam is like yelling at him, you know, just saying like, I do have a degree and all this stuff. And she's calling him a loser, saying he's full of shit. And she's like, I would read you for filth. And I'm like, yes, girl, because he's a piece of shit. Like, he doesn't deserve like her words. She doesn't need to be wasting her breath on him. But like, oh my God, that guy's just so full of himself. Next, we see Milton and Lydia coming back to join the rest of the cast. And they seem to be in higher spirits. He like drops her off and he talks to the girls. He's like, hey, make sure she's all right. Like, take care of Lydia. And then he like walks away to go join, I don't know, someone else. But yeah, it's like kind of awkward because Miriam is just like still going off about Uche, and they're just all sitting there. And yeah, it's pretty awkward. Uche tells Milton how Lydia like plotted to be there, and how she was telling some of the girls like, oh, I feel like I'm going to run into my ex, all this stuff. And pretty much Milton is just like, well, you know, you had your past with her, she had your past with you, you guys have your own perspective, and I have my own perspective with Lydia. So pretty much she's just like, you know, I appreciate the heads up, but you know, I'm going to go off of like what I think and my gut and my feelings and all this stuff. Uche is like kind of pressing Milton, just being like, you know, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you know, is this the thing you really want to do? And he's just like, first, like I was coming at you because I was looking out for Lydia, but now I'm like trying to look out for you and make sure Lydia doesn't hurt you. So I just want to make sure like we're all good. And he's like, yeah, we're good. And they dap it up and go their separate ways. Next, we see Chris having a chat with Izzy. And he's bringing up how he says that Izzy told Chris that she was a bad person. And Izzy's like, oh, actually, I didn't say that. I didn't say you said that she was a bad person. So that's red flag number one. And Chris is just like, well, I just want to know, like, I just want to squash this because I don't want bad things being said about Johnny. And shortly after, Stacey comes over, and it's like pretty awkward because clearly they're talking about like Johnny and whatever. And Stacey's like, oh, I didn't know like what I was walking into. So it's kind of awkward. Izzy is saying that he wasn't trying to like purposely say anything bad about Johnny, but he was just looking out for Chris. And he tells Chris that Johnny said I love you to Izzy 4 times in the pods. And Chris is like, whoa, well, I didn't know that. And after chatting a little bit, of course, Johnny comes over. She's like, is everything good? Because like, what's going on here? And she's like kind of coming at Stacey, which like, I don't blame her, because if both of them are going to gang up on your man, like come for the girl, right? I guess. But yeah, it's just pretty awkward because she's just like, well, what's going on? Because I feel like you are ganging up on Chris. And she's like, well, Chris is the one that wanted to talk to Izzy, so ask him. And overall, the scene is just like really ugly because to me, it's like, I feel like Chris tried to like really talk through that situation. And to me, Izzy and Stacey were just both being really petty and pretty much bullying Johnny. Stacey's being really petty, saying how much of a shitty person Johnny is. Johnny's like, well, go ahead and ask like everybody out there, because I don't think I'm a shitty person. She's like, oh, I did. Like, trust me, I did my research and I'm confident in my answers. Izzy's also being really petty, and eventually him and Stacey get up to leave. And when he leaves, he's like, you know, Chris, like, I'm just looking out for you, man. Like, we're good. Like, there's nothing bad here. Like, I'm just looking out for you. And Chris is like, well, you know, all 4 of us, like, we're not good. And I feel like that was the whole point of the conversation. He wanted all of them to be good, not just him and Izzy, because that's awkward. Stacey is like kind of going off to the rest of the cast members and one of the girls is like, I'm gonna be honest, like, you're my friend and she's my friend, and I'm gonna just let y'all know y'all are both looking at it from different sides. And Stacy's just like, oh well, like, too bad, so sad. Like, I don't like her. I'm not gonna look at her. Hope she don't look my way. Like, it is what it is. And of course, Johnny is just like left upset because she feels like she's being bullied. And honestly, at this point, Chris and Johnny, they just need to leave, separate themselves as much as possible from the show because, that was so ugly. That was, disgusting. We then see a small clip of Lydia and Milton's convo from before. I think this was like edited really weird because clearly they had this conversation before Milton went to go talk to Uche. So I don't know why we didn't see this beforehand. But pretty much Milton's just being like super supportive to her. He's saying like, fuck the haters. You're strong. You're a bad bitch. You make money, yada, yada, yada. And they end off that conversation in higher hopes. We then cut to Stacy and Izzy, and they're coming back home after the party. And as soon as they walk in the apartment, Izzy's talking about Chris and Johnny. I'm like, oh my God, bruh. Like, can you talk about anything else? And it's clear that like, for some reason, this is like so pertinent on his mind. Like, I don't even understand. But is he just saying how like Chris deserves like a better woman and he doesn't deserve Johnny? And Stacy's like, I don't even want to keep talking about her. Like, we're just wasting breath at this point. Stacy then asks Izzy, like, why does he even care that Chris is dating Johnny? She's like, it doesn't matter because Chris clearly wants Johnny. He's with her. So if he didn't want her, or if he felt like there were any red flags, like, then he wouldn't be with her. Why does he need you to tell him that Johnny isn't a good person? He says that he was just looking out for a friend and he felt like that's what he wanted to do. And then he starts mentioning how when Stacy was ganging up on Johnny, how much that turned him on. And Stacy does look a little bit annoyed by this statement. But then he just starts telling her like, oh my God, like, I'm just so happy I have you, blah, blah, blah. And Stacy gets annoyed. She's like, I don't like how you seem to only tell me this much affection, how much you care about me, only when it's compared to drama. And honestly, he's like super drunk. So anything that he's saying, it just sounds like a whining toddler at this point. It just sounds like he's talking out of his ass. Stacey says that she feels like he just says things, like he hasn't really put his words into actions. Like he says like, oh, like I'll treat you right. Like I'll show you how much I care for you. But she's like, what have you done yet? And it's like, you know, a couple weeks before the wedding, like what have you done to show me, to prove me these things? Izzy says that he feels like he's doing his best and he feels like he's not enough for her. And pretty much this is how the conversation ends, and he walks away to go in their room. Stacey's then talking to production and she feels like, you know, well, I'm doing all I can. I know what I'm doing. So, you know, I'm done. Like, this is enough for me. She then walks in the room and she finds Izzy crying. And he's just saying how he feels like he's not enough for her and he's over it. And he's like, I don't want to talk about it right now. And that's where their scene ends. We cut to Milton and Lydia. And Lydia's just saying how she felt like, you know, the night was super stressful. And Milton talks about his conversation with Uche and how he feels like he's going off of his perception and that he feels good about their relationship. Milton is pretty much like, you know, you should handle things the way I would handle things, which is pretty much just not to give a fuck. And Lydia just appreciates that he's being supportive, and they kiss, say I love you, and she can't wait to marry him and blah, blah, blah. That's how that scene ends. So seems like things are pretty hopeful, I guess. It's the next day. And we check in with Stacy, and she's teaching a Pilates class. Izzy is there to talk to her after her class because they hadn't talked since the night before. And, you know, obviously he wanted to make it up to her. He says that the whole scenario really caught him off guard, and he feels like he's trying his best, but during that conversation, he felt underappreciated. Stacy says that the things that she does for him, she wants that reciprocated. And since the wedding is only a few weeks away, she feels like he hasn't proved that yet. So that's why she was feeling a little bit worried. Long story short, he says, I love you. And he's like, I'm going to put my emotions to the side and do everything I can to be the right guy for you. And after they talk a little bit more, she kind of says sorry. Not really. She's just like, I made you sad. Like, girl, she didn't even say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, like anything. She didn't even apologize. Like, he's the one who apologized. The show is so exhausting. But anyway, after they make up, he gives her a gift, and it's just a gift bag full of like really corny gifts. one of them is a coupon for dinner, which is like, bro, why do you need a coupon for that? I thought you said you would cook her dinner anytime. Like, why does she need a coupon? Oh my God. He also gives her a plunger, making fun of Mexico. I think like their second day she clogged the toilet. And then the last gift is a picture frame of them with the dogs. And she thinks it's so romantic. So good for them, I guess. It's the next day. I feel like I just said that. Oh my God. They're really speed running through these episodes because like what? It's only 2 couples. How much time can they really fill up, right? Izzy's mom comes to their place to come visit him and Stacy. They sit down and wait for Stacy to come home, and Izzy's mom starts to bring up how shocking the situation is. And she just talks about how it goes against traditional love, how it's different the way her parents and her grandparents got married. And he talks about how he and Stacy got through their past arguments, and he just feels like she is the right person for him. After opening up to his mom about how much he likes Stacy, she's pretty much just like, I just want you both to be sure because this is a really big decision. After that, Stacy comes home and the mom is being really sweet, just complimenting her. And then they go to sit on the couch. And then she tells Stacy how nervous she is. She says she's really nervous because of how short the experiment is. And she's like, I just really want to make sure that you're going to be able to support him. And I want to know that you have genuine feelings for Izzy. Of course, Stacy is being honest. She's like, I have to be upfront. Like, I'm not the perfect person for your daughter, for your son. What? I'm tired. I'm sorry. But she does tell Izzy's mom that she's in love with him and that Izzy helped bring out a more vulnerable side of her, which she appreciates. And she feels like that allowed them to have a more deep connection. Stacy starts to get emotional, which makes Izzy's mom be emotional. And she's like, I just really want you guys to be sure because I don't want either of you to be hurt, and I just want you guys both happy. And this ends off on a good note. They celebrate. Izzy hugs his mom. All the good feels. So good for them, I guess. That's just going to be my ending statements after each check-in. Like, good for them, I guess, because I truly have no hope. To end episode 8, we see Lydia meeting Milton's mom, dad, sister, her husband, and their daughter. They don't really look too excited or lively to meet Lydia, which in contrast, Lydia is like super excited, like, oh my God, hi. Oh my God, hi. Can I hug you? I'm a hugger. Like, just super excited. And the mom and dad are just like, hello. Nice to meet you. Like, almost stoic in a way. After Lydia introduces herself to the family, Milton's dad asks Lydia why she thinks that they're good for each other. Lydia starts explaining how she's never had a love like hers and Milton's before, and that she felt like she's never had a guy be so mature as he is. And she says that she's dated guys in her 30s and 40s, and she's never had such a mature, like, emotional connection as she's had with Milton, which is ironic because he's 24. Lydia's overall being like really positive, and Milton's just like kind of sitting there off on the side. He's like sitting on the counter, and to me it's just really giving the vibes of like a little kid sitting at like their like teacher parent conference. Like, the teacher is just like telling the parent like the things that the kid needs to work on, and the kid is just like sitting there embarrassed. Like, it was really giving those vibes. Lydia's talking to his parents. Milton's sister is just kind of off on the side, like talking to him. She's asking him why he wants to get married, and he's like not really answering her. I don't know if he's just avoiding the question because, like, I don't know, he's not trying to have like this side conversation in front of the whole family, but it's kind of awkward. And then Lydia's like, oh, like, what did he say? I didn't hear his answer. And they both say different things. His sister's like, oh, he said I love you. And Milton says like something else different. So it's like obviously awkward. That then brings up how he's never really heard Milton say that he's like ready to settle down and ready to have a wife. So he's like, what made you feel ready now? Like, why all of a sudden made you feel like, you know, this is the one for me? And then his sister's like, because it's phony. Because it's fake. And she's just standing there like, yeah, I said it. Yeah, this shit fake. And it's like, ooh, damn, girl. Okay, I see you. You're bold. So clearly this makes things a little tense. You know, they're trying to like breeze by it. But then Milton's mom asks to talk to Lydia alone. And of course, his sister joins too. Pretty much, his mom just asks her if she's really ready to do this, like commit her life to Milton. And she just says that Milton is a lot of first for her. And she just really cherishes the things that he does. And this just feels really right. His mom then brings up how she feels like Lydia's answers are scripted. And Lydia's like, this is just how I feel. This is just how I feel. And like, to be fair, Lydia has been talking to the producers. She has been answering these like interview type questions for the show, so it makes sense why they would sound scripted from the family asking her, because she's answered the question so many times. But Lydia brings up how a year ago, if she joined the experiment, she knew that she wouldn't have been ready. Milton's sister says, so why are you ready now? And she says, I've worked a lot on myself. I've worked really hard to get to where I am, and I feel like this is my reward. His sister is still not convinced. She's like, I know Milton. I know when he's sad. I know when he's happy. I know when he's excited. And overall, she just feels really unsure. And that's where the episode ends. Episode 9, baby. We're a week away from the weddings, and our couples are going dress and tux shopping. We see Stacy, Lydia, their friends and family meet with Vanessa Lachey, and they check in, chat how they're feeling about this moment in the process and how excited they're feeling about the weddings and whatnot. And Milton, Izzy, and their friends and family meet with Nick Lachey and talk about the same. Nothing really too worthwhile to go over here. Stacy and Izzy, they're doing really good. Of course, they're on cloud 9. But when they check in with Milton and Lydia, Milton does mention how he's feeling a little bit nervous. And he does believe that Lydia will say yes, but he's not 100% sure. And then we cut to Lydia saying how she's so in love and how she just can't wait to be married, which I think has kind of been her vibe the whole time. But to be fair, in my opinion, it has been coming off a little bit forced. So I don't blame Milton for saying that he's confused if she'll say yes or not. The next scene, we see Stacy and Izzy on a date. Izzy talks about how he's putting in more effort to woo Stacy. And he talks about how she didn't have a good night the night before, so that's why he wanted to plan this date. He heard from her family and friends that she likes to take rides on private jets. So that's exactly what he did. He set up a tour in this hangar to tour private jets and take them for a ride. All right, Izzy, go off, I guess. But you know the production definitely helped with that. I don't think he could afford that on his own. After the jet ride, they even have a cute little dinner in the hangar. And I don't think there's anything special to talk about during this conversation. I actually watched this episode at 1.5 speed because I'm like, oh my God. I just felt like it was so much filler. They just talk about how much they're into each other. Then they talk about how they're going to have their first dance. They get up and dance. They flirt some more. Just like, oh my God, get on with it. We get it. You're feeling happy about the wedding. Okay. All right. What else is there to see? You know? But the next scene is Milton having lunch with his sister, Jessica. Jessica asks how Lydia was feeling after meeting the family. And Milton says that she felt like it was intense. And Milton says that he felt like it went better than expected. Jessica then asks, well, what did you expect? He says, well, I do think our family is just a little bit difficult. And he says that there's nothing wrong about their family dynamic because, you know, clearly it works for them. But it's just different compared to like his friends, for example. She asked him if he's really ready for the wedding because she doesn't hear him say that he's sure. And he's like, no, I'm sure. Like, I feel sure just like how I felt sure about anything else in my life. And she's like, I can tell she's not convinced because come on, how many times can you just think in your personal life that you're like, oh, I feel sure about this. And then like the time comes, the day comes, and then you're not feeling so sure. Or maybe you regret after the fact, you know? So it's just like, I can see why she was just like, I'm not sold on that answer. She then calls him out how she feels like it feels a little fake. And she's like, this is a really big deal. So I just want you to be aware of the choice that you're about to make. And of course, Milton is defending their love. He's saying like, no, I am attracted to her. I was attracted to her education. And to him, he said it feels like it just lines up. But of course, Jessica is still just really hammering it in. Like, have y'all talked about these like serious issues? Because pretty much a marriage is like a business plan, which I've never heard that before. I thought that was pretty funny. But ultimately, Milton says that he's ready for Lydia. And then he asks like, so are you coming to the wedding? And she's like, yeah, we'll be there. And that's how that scene ends. Next, we cut back to Stacy and Izzy, and it's the day before the weddings. They're packing up their stuff from the apartment, and things are clearly like very tense. We can see it written all over Stacy's face, and the vibes are just very tense. They're not talking at all. It's just super awkward. And so Izzy finally like starts the conversation, and he's like, so we obviously had a conversation last night. How are you feeling? Stacy, right from the jump, she's like, I don't know if I can trust you. What the fuck happened? We just saw them at the dinner. They were so excited about their first dance. Like, what is going on? And we learned that the cause of this tension is that Stacy feels like he wasn't being truthful about his financial past. Izzy says he wasn't purposely trying to not tell her. He was pretty much just waiting for like the right time and place. He felt like being in the pods wasn't a good time to talk about it because, I don't know, I guess he felt like they didn't have enough time or whatever. And he said that he just really wanted them to sit down and have like a formal conversation where he like had to explain it all. So I don't know, I guess in his head it made sense to talk about it literally the day before the wedding. Like, that's what's not really adding up to me. Like, okay, I understand you didn't want to say it in the pods, like you didn't want to say it at the reveal, but it's like you literally had 4 weeks between the reveal and the wedding to tell her this. So like, why did you wait so long? You know, I don't really get that. Stacey brings up how one time they were at a gas station and she's like, you didn't think to tell me about your credit card then? Because she asked him, do you have a credit card? And he says no. And she asked him, like, why didn't you have a credit card? Like, you can get points. And he's like, well, I had it in college, but I tossed it. And he's like, no, like, that wasn't the time and place. Like I said, I wanted to have it in like a formal conversation, and that wasn't the time to do it. Also, he's like, you know, I was being really open. Like, I knew this conversation was going to be a lot, and I didn't hold anything back. Like, I told you, like, my debt, which all of that's resolved, is just I had bad credit. And he tells her, like, it wasn't even a lot of money. It was like $3,500. And we can see Stacey get a little bit annoyed at this. She like looks off to the side a little bit. And I'm just like, oh my God. At first, I was also like, really? $3,500? And don't get me wrong, that's a good amount of money. Like, I don't have $3,500 just to like blow out, you know, like I don't have $3,500 just to throw out of my back pocket or whatever. But I'm just like, I don't know. Like, you have this bougie ass girlfriend that likes to fly private jets, but you couldn't pay back $3,500. I don't know, my guy. But at the end of it, Stacey is supportive. She's like, it's going to be okay. They hug and things off and a little bit more hopeful. Then that brings us to Milton and Lydia's date before the wedding. They have dinner at a museum, which looks like to be like a rock and mineral exhibit, which is actually so pretty. And of course, after they have their little cute initial chat, when they first get to dinner, Lydia asks if he's ever thought about what he's wanted in a wife. And he's like, well, I did, but things are different now. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're not exactly the same as you were in the pods. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you know, sometimes you wake up really cranky. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, sometimes you just wake up really angry. And like, I don't know why. And he brings up how that bothers him. And she starts to blame it on him. And he's like, if you just woke up, like, what did I do wrong? And then she's like, well, if I'm mad, then there's a reason. This then starts what seems to be like a petty argument, because then Lydia starts bringing up how he needs to clean more. But after hearing more about what she's pointing out, I can see why this would be like super annoying and why she would be waking up mad at Milton, like, honestly. She says how he leaves towels on the floor after he gets out of the shower. He just leaves his dirty clothes like in the corner of their bedroom. And she says that he even left a plate at their bedside table for like a few days, which is like, come on, my dude. I get you're tired. I get like whatever, but you can't even put it in the sink. You can't even rinse it off. Like, I can see why she would be upset. He says how he feels like he can't share his feelings with Lydia because of how emotional she is, and he doesn't want her to take it the wrong way. And then he mentions how he didn't appreciate the way Lydia handled the situation between her and Uche. Lydia says that she's proud of the way she handled things with Uche because she wasn't just going to let him pretty much put her down. And she says that she feels like Milton is being a bit condescending and not really supportive. Milton brings up how he feels like he can take her critiques, but she can't take his. For example, he's like, when you tell me to pick up a dirty towel, I'm not like tripping over it. I just like, okay, let me do better. But he says, like, if he feels like he's bringing up something to her, that she's just, like, automatically defensive. And honestly, that's pretty much true. We see that because after he says that, she, you know, tightens her gaze. She, like, sits up and he's like, oh, I knew this was going to be bad. And so she's like, you don't think I listen to you? And he's like, no, not when it comes to me, like, being encouraging. Like, I really don't think you listen to me because everything I say and do is, like, because I'm looking out for you. So clearly things are a bit tense. It's a little bit of awkward silence. And Milton's just like, man, this is such a nice dinner. Like, why can't we just enjoy this dinner? Why do we have to argue? Lydia says, we're not arguing. We're just having a disagreement. It's different. He says, well, whether it's a disagreement or argument, I don't like it. And she says, so do you think I like to argue? He's like, I don't know. Lydia scoffs and she's like, well, then you don't know me. They start bickering about how they're different people. Milton says how she's more emotional than he is. And then he starts bringing up how differently he would have handled the situation if he was talking to his ex. He was saying if she started yelling at him, then he would just walk away. And she was like, well, you wouldn't talk to your ex if she was like yelling like that? And he was like, no, if she was being like out of pocket, I would be like, hey, we can talk about this later. Like, I'm not going to fight with her. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to curse her out. Lydia's like, I didn't curse out Uche. And he's like, well, I'm not going to cry and do this and that and say you're an asshole. And she was like, I didn't call Uche an asshole to his face. I said that to you because I was just expressing how I was feeling in that moment. And she says, by the way, Uche is saying, yes, he is an asshole. And Milton's just like, thank you. Thanks for letting me know for the millionth time. And this sets off Lydia. She's like, nope, I can't do this. She gets up to walk away and go cry in a corner, which is like, oh my God. They just really need to pack it up and go home. Like, please. Please, just stop. Just give it up. After she's crying, she comes back to the table. And he's like, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Oh my God. Don't hit her with that. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And she's like, I'm sorry I didn't live up to your expectations. And he's like, I wasn't trying to make it seem like you weren't living up to my expectations. I was just bringing up a time that I didn't feel comfortable. Lydia cuts him off and she's like, so you don't think I felt comfortable? Do you think I felt comfortable when Uche was calling me a stalker? And oh my God, Milton is just over it. You can just see it all over his face that he's over it. And he pretty much just shuts down and stops trying to talk to her. At least that's what it looks like from the editing. And Lydia is just telling him like, hey, this is me. This is who I am. And I just need to know that you're going to be the person that is going to want to understand me. And from what we've seen, again, I think this is just editing, but it just looks like he's just eating his dinner and not responding, which is really awkward because then she's like, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. Like smiling, holding her hand. And I'm like, what? But apparently he didn't even respond to like the last paragraph she said. Like, I'm confused. She's like, we got this, right? And of course, the scene fades to black. And that's episode 9, baby. I am genuinely exhausted. Oh my God. Half of it is just because of like anxiety and depression, but the other half is because of this fucking show. Oh my God. So of course there's one episode left, the weddings, and then the reunion, I believe. Honestly, if I wasn't this invested in giving recaps, I would give up. I don't even care about the show. I don't care who's gonna get married. Honestly, this show just feels so trash now. Like, I was really in love with the first season, and I think the second season too. Maybe it was the third season I didn't watch because that guy Shane and that other guy, Deepti's guy, they were both so insufferable, so I couldn't even watch that season. But I really liked the last season too, so I don't know. Yeah, this season just really feels like a flop. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.